Okay, wow. So this situation with Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, this somebody who honestly was like the center of the 2020 presidential election. Trump seemed to really attempt to focus on Hunter Biden's situation and all of his issues and the Burisma stuff where he was on the like gas company's board making like 50K a month without having any real expertise or reason why the Ukrainian Energy Board company. And so people are wondering, like, what is going on? Does Joe Biden have any links to why he was there? Did he use his influence at all to actually get him on the board to be making that money? And so this is really crazy. I mean, there was obviously some news reports going around, but there's been a federal investigation going on for a couple years now. I guess it's been going on in Delaware. But he seems to be in trouble on potentially multiple counts. So this article says federal investigation of Hunter Biden heats up. And so they're literally saying that there's actually a legitimate shot that Hunter Biden is going to be charged with crimes, federal crimes. And I don't know if it's ever happened in U.S. history that the son of a president of the United States has been federally charged with crimes. Now, I don't know for sure if that's never happened, but I do believe that it's never happened, although I'm not 100% sure. So we are getting into some pretty crazy political territory here. This article reads: the Justice Department investigation into Hunter Biden's business activities has gained steam in recent months, with the flurry of witnesses providing testimony to federal investigators and more expected to provide interviews in the coming weeks, according to multiple sources familiar with the matter. The probe, led by the U.S. Attorney in Wilmington, Delaware, began as early as 2018 and concerns multiple financial and business activities in foreign countries dating to when Biden's father was vice president. Investigators have examined whether Hunter Biden and some of his associates violated money laundering, tax and foreign lobbying laws, as well as firearm and other regulations. So there's multiple potential crimes that he has potentially committed. One of them is a firearm crime, which is bizarre. I'll explain that in a little bit. Looks like some money laundering, which is obviously, movement of illegal money, right? Trying to find a way to legally create, illegal money, take illegal money, say that you won it by gambling when it was, cocaine money, and then tax and foreign lobbying laws. So, some financial crimes as well as like a random firearm charge. It says to do so, law enforcement has gathered information from lobbyists connected to Hunter Biden, from his business partners, and from others who've observed his financial engagements, including with a woman with whom he had a child. Hunter Biden has not been charged with any crimes and has denied any wrongdoing. His president, Joe Biden, is not being investigated as part of the probe of his son's business activities, according to sources who have been briefed. And so this is obviously an interesting piece about Joe Biden himself, whether or not this can criminally, implicate him, right? Criminally, it could implicate him if it's found that Joe Biden, as vice president, had utilized his position of power in some ways to actually influence his position gaining in a way that he did it. So, for example, like if Burisma had just picked him up because they thought it would be like a good connect to have for them, I don't think that implicates Joe Biden in any way. But if Joe Biden was putting pressure or, telling Burisma to, hey, pick up my son, pay him this cash, we'll do you favors, that would be a serious major crime, right? Doesn't seem to be any evidence of the latter. It seems to more be a former situation, so it doesn't appear that Joe Biden is going to be legally held accountable, as it doesn't look like he's implicated in any of this so far anyways. But you guys already know that, in 2019, Donald Trump was pressuring Ukraine to investigate, the Bidens and all of that stuff going on. And there was a previous report that the FBI had taken possession of the Hunter Biden laptop with a bunch of business documents and other potentially salacious materials. And so, there is a bunch of stuff going on here. It says those discussions have involved investigators from the FBI and IRS Criminal Investigation Agency, prosecutors in Delaware, and at Justice Department headquarters. One person briefed on the matter said Hunter Biden has publicly discussed his own substance abuse struggles, and some justice officials have debated whether his open discussions of his past drug use could potentially weaken their case should they bring one. I mean, I don't know. I'd be pretty surprised if they were to use that as some. I don't know what kind of a defense that would be. Is there even a defense for committing acts while under the influence of drugs? I mean, I'm certainly not aware of such a defense. I mean, what are you trying to do, like an insanity defense? But I don't think the insanity plea counts for, doing drugs. I think Hunter Biden was big on cocaine. He had some substance abuse issues with that kind of stuff. Um, Says investigators have at various times inquired about multiple facets of Hunter Biden's life, initially focusing on tax issues and money transfers related to business activities in China, according to multiple people familiar with the probe. They're also examining Biden's role while on the board of the Ukrainian energy company Burisma years ago, the sources said. So it seems like the tax and money laundering issues are starting to come from China. It goes into this in a little bit, but it says Biden has told associates he paid outstanding tax bills, and public records show more than $450,000 in state lines in Washington, D.C. were lifted in 2020, indicating those liabilities were likely paid off. But those payments haven't resolved his legal issues. Investigators have examined the source of funds to pay the tax bills. And so I guess they're investigating to see whether or not there was some kind of money laundering going on with this $450,000, what it was paid by, how it was paid. Like I said earlier about the firearm incident, it appears to be a random firearm incident. So prosecutors also have examined a 2018 incident in which a firearm owned by Hunter Biden ended up tossed by his then girlfriend into a dumpster in Wilmington. A person briefed on the matter said Biden described in media interviews last year that he was addicted to drugs, which raised the possibility he broke federal law when he bought the firearm. Federal law prohibits firearms purchased by anyone who uses or is addicted to illegal drugs. It's unclear whether the gun incident remains an active part of the investigation. Honestly, I doubt that's going to be a serious issue. This is one of those issues that seems like it'll just get thrown away because he's obviously tied to people who are in big power. So I don't really expect that to end up being anything. But I think, the money laundering issue is probably going to be the biggest one. It also is, going on with the Burisma stuff, although I don't really see there being too much coming out of the Burisma stuff, if anything. It says Joe Biden has said his son's work in Ukraine had no influence on his decisions at the time. State Department critics of Hunter Biden's Ukraine ties say they were never influenced improperly, according to transcripts of Senate testimony. Federal prosecutors from Justice headquarters in Washington and Delaware have focused at least in part on whether a lobbying firm working with Burisma called Blue Star Strategies approached U.S. government officials in an attempt to burnish the Ukrainian firm's reputation after State Department officials criticized the oligarch who founded it. The firm's founders have testified to Congress previously that they were merely interested in understanding the U.S. government's views of the foreign company. Justice Department requires lobbyists and public relations firms working on behalf of foreign entities to disclose their ties. In recent years, national security investigators expanded the department's initiatives to prosecute groups and people who don't publicly disclose their international connections. So this is pretty interesting because this has a lot to do with like the Trump stuff we're seeing with Mike Flynn. I guess he was getting paid money from Turkey as a lobbyist, and that wasn't disclosed. There's like ties to Russia and the Trump squad and whatnot. And so I think that that's part of the reason why they're trying this. So it's pretty interesting to see it coming back around on Joe Biden, of course, pretty interesting. It says in the past year, a grand jury in Delaware has issued subpoenas and prosecutors have gathered information about Blue Star Strategies, as well as about Hunter Biden. 4 people briefed on the matter said. Inquiries included how closely the lobbyists were working with Hunter Biden, how active he was in Blue Star's work on Burisma's reputation in the U.S., what their efforts for Burisma entailed. So I guess this Blue Star lobbyist group could be an issue for Hunter Biden if he had ties with Blue Star, in which Blue Star was basically making him a deal to improve Burisma's reputation in the United States, and that was something that Hunter Biden didn't disclose. So that's also something that is possible, of course. There's also last year investigators pursued information from foreign business contacts of Hunter Biden. His longtime associate and Burisma co-board member Devon Archer went before the Delaware grand jury last July. According to a person familiar with the matter, Archer was asked about the structure of payments Burisma made to an entity founded by Biden and other partners, which appeared to be related to Biden's taxes, source said. He was also asked about lobbying efforts involving Blue Star Strategies, and so that guy was sentenced last month to more than a year in prison for his role in the scheme to defraud a Native American tribe. So that's something different. So in summary, there's a bunch of different potential crimes committed by Hunter Biden going on here. Appears to be a firearm charge, which honestly I doubt anything's going to come of it just because he's a person who has ties to people in power. Seems like something that'll get thrown away, especially in a situation with all this other stuff. But seems to be some money laundering going on with some payments to China, and I guess illegal money being attempted to be legalized, and who and what paid for those tax debts, that $435K tax debt that he had. And then also this, Blue Star Group that was, has some lobbying ties to the Burisma company, and obviously Hunter Biden being on the Burisma company, and I guess having some ties to the Blue Star Group. There are now questions about whether or not Hunter Biden had ties to that lobbyist group, and so he could have been in violation of lobbyist regulations and rules because he didn't disclose those ties. So that's a summary of the potential charges coming against him, federal charges. He's been under investigation for like 3 years in Delaware, but I believe it's a federal investigation in Delaware, not like a state level investigation, is my understanding. Yeah, it says federal prosecutor from Justice headquarters in Washington and Delaware, folks, at least in part. So it's federal prosecutors in Delaware, not state level prosecutors. So it's going to be pretty interesting politically speaking. Is this going to impact Joe Biden? In this last political cycle, I don't think anything really could have impacted Joe Biden. Right now, it seems different, but I don't know whether or not Joe Biden will be impacted or not. It's hard to tell. He definitely was kind of invincible in the last presidential cycle. I mean, I think he could have on the debate stage just come out and just started masturbating. And I think, people would have been like, wow, this is the leader that we need in the face of coronavirus. So bold. So, who knows? The polling numbers are not looking good for him right now. They're looking better for Trump than Kamala and Biden. But, that would change, the minute he enters the election cycle. And those kinds of things change all the time. So it's unclear. As of right now, there appears to be no evidence that Joe Biden was complicit in these crimes of any kind, like he committed any crimes. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of that. So that's going to, be a big deal for him. But nonetheless, it's going to be a, political bombshell going on here, political bombshell. And so it's pretty crazy, but they're literally saying that there's a serious chance that there are going to be federal charges brought on Hunter Biden, which is definitely insane. And they're wide-ranging: lobbyist crimes, a random firearm charge where it's like, oh, you had purchased potentially a firearm while under the influence of cocaine. Also, some, money laundering going on with some payments with China, I guess. Some financial dealings in China. So, we'll keep an eye on this story.